Greetings, MBAP 518 International Business students. This is Dr. Jaros with a video explanation for how I graded exam 2. So let's look at the questions. First of all, question number 1. If a firm traditionally has used a Center for Global approach to knowledge management, what transnational approach to knowledge management should it evolve towards? What would be the goal of doing so? Well, if a firm uses a Center for Global approach, there are two possible transnational approaches to knowledge management. There's the locally leveraged approach and the globally linked approach. The correct answer is the globally linked approach, because the globally linked approach is the approach that firms that use the Center for Global approach evolve towards. That's because the Center for Global approach to knowledge management is the traditional form of knowledge management utilized by international firms and global firms. These are firms that are based on a strong central headquarters where things get done at headquarters and then are diffused out to the subsidiaries. Firms that historically use the local for local approach to knowledge management, they evolve towards a locally leveraged approach. Why should a firm, what would be the goal of moving towards the globally linked approach to knowledge management? Well, the goal would be to try to involve the subsidiaries of the company into the process of developing new and innovative ideas. See, when a firm uses the Center for Global approach, the headquarters conducts all of the research and development activities and the knowledge generation activities. And subsidiaries are left out of that process, which is a weakness because the subsidiaries might have good ideas. They might have new, good, innovative ideas about how the business could run better or about new products or services. So the goal of the globally linked approach is to pool the resources of both headquarters and the subsidiaries to get them both involved in the process of new knowledge generation and innovation. All right, let's look at question 2. According to the Stopford and Wells International Structural Stages model, what kind of firm will have a matrix structure? Is this structure likely to be effective? Explain. Well, according to the Stopford and Wells model, a firm that is a fully developed global firm will have a matrix firm, meaning a firm that has a high percentage of foreign product sales as a percentage of total sales and a high level of foreign product diversity. When a firm is high on both of those dimensions, it will evolve towards a matrix structure. Is it likely to be effective? No, it is not. Even though the matrix structure was theoretic, seemed to be good in theory, in practice, a lot of problems developed with matrix structures. The main problem is that it has a dual reporting relationship. In a matrix structure, an employee reports to a geographic area manager and a product manager. And that can create conflicts because what if your area manager tells you to do one thing, but your product manager tells you to do something else? Then the employee is paralyzed and doesn't know what to do, right? Also, the matrix structure is very complex, which leads to problems of communication and information log jams and confusion. So the answer is no, it's not likely to be effective. Let's look at question number 3. According to research, what is the optimal level of foreign partner ownership percentage in a foreign domestic joint venture? For example, in a joint venture between a Japanese company and a Brazilian company in which the joint venture is operating in Brazil. Explain. Well, according to the article that I assigned to you, the optimal level is about 30%, maybe up to 40% of foreign ownership. And that's because below that level of ownership, like for example, if the Japanese partner only owned 20% or 10% of the joint venture, the mortality rate for the joint venture, meaning the risk of failure, okay, tends to be much higher. Okay, but after the foreign partner owns 30 to 40%, once we get that level of foreign partner involvement, then the mortality rate of the joint venture basically flattens out, and it doesn't matter beyond that point. So the research suggests that about 30%, maybe up to 40% is optimal. Okay, and the reason for that is, if the foreign partner owns less than 30% or so, like let's say they own 20% or 10%, then they're likely to not view the joint venture as a significant investment or project for their company, and they won't invest the necessary resources, the money, the time, the managerial talent, and other resources to ensure that it succeeds. But once the foreign partner owns like 30% or 40% of the joint venture, they tend to take it much more seriously as an investment, and they will work with the domestic partner to ensure that it succeeds. Last but not least, let's look at question number 4. Should the SK2 skincare line be expanded into Europe, or should more investment be made in building the Japanese market for it? Explain the pros and cons for each. Well, there's no right answer or wrong answer to the first part of the question. In other words, you could argue that it should be expanded into Europe, or that more investment should be made in the Japanese market. Either one of those is defensible. What I was really looking for here was an explanation of the pros and cons of each approach. For example, when it comes to the European option, right, the main advantages are that Europe is a very lucrative market. There's a lot of money to be made. It's a multi-billion-dollar skincare and cosmetics market. Another big advantage of the European approach is that it has many sophisticated cosmetics users. That's important because SK2 is a sophisticated product line. It's like a multi-step skincare process, and so it's targeted at sophisticated users, and Europe has a lot of those. But there's one big drawback to the European market, and that is that it is a saturated market, meaning the European cosmetics and skincare market is already dominated by very well-established brand names. And that means it would cost Procter & Gamble a lot of money in terms of marketing and product introduction expenses to try to crack that market and get SK2 established there. It's a very, very competitive market where it's hard to earn profits. All right, about Japan, the Japanese option, okay? The main advantages of the Japanese market is, number one, it also is a very large, lucrative market for skincare products, a multi-billion-dollar market. And the SK2 product line only currently has about 2% of the market. So there's plenty of room for growth. Okay, it only has about 2% of the skincare market. Our skincare users are using SK2, so there's a lot of room for growth. Plus, we already know that it's successful in Japan, so Japanese consumers tend to like the product. Right? The main drawback of the SK2 of investing further in Japan, though, is that Procter & Gamble as a company has made a commitment to developing global brands. It has given its subsidiaries the responsibility for identifying local brands with global potential to try to roll them out globally. So if Procter & Gamble decides to just keep the SK2 product line in Japan and not expand to Europe or other parts of the world, then it would not be following that corporate strategy of trying to develop global brands. Okay, that's my explanation for how I graded exam 2. I hope this was helpful to you.